All right, the time is 5 p.m. Good evening and welcome to the October 2022 meeting of the Omaha Public Power District Board of Directors. Thank you all for joining us in person at the Omaha Douglas Civic Center and remotely via WebEx. I hope you and your loved ones are staying safe and healthy. With me in person today are my fellow board members, Mike Kavanaugh, Sarah Howard, Janice Molhoff, Craig Moody, Mary Spurgeon, and Rick Yoder. We also have President and CEO Javier Fernandez, our General Counsel Steve Bruckner with the Fraser Stryker Law Firm, and members of the board meeting support staff. OPPD's executive leadership team and subject matter experts are also participating in today's meeting in person and via WebEx. Additionally, we have members of the public at the Civic Center and joining us virtually via WebEx, consisting of both OPPD employees and some members of the public virtually. As a reminder to board members, executive leadership team, and OPPD staff, please mute your microphones to reduce background noise. To members of the public, thank you for attending. You are in listen-only mode. If you have any technology questions, please use the chat feature in WebEx to communicate with the event host. If you are disconnected from the WebEx conference, we ask that you rejoin in the same manner as when you originally joined. I will now ask a member of OPPD's physical security team to provide the safety briefing for our location and for Javier Fernandez to provide other safety reminders.
We do have first aid, AED, and fire suppression materials located at either of our emergency exits to the right and left of the room here. In the event of an evacuation, fire, that kind of thing, we would proceed to those stairwells and go to the exterior of the building. For weather events, we would go down into the parking area and we would follow the lead of the deputy sheriffs that are here today in the building. Luckily today, I don't think we have anything to worry about. Reference the weather. It's beautiful outside, so we can enjoy that. Also, during this time, we have some additional first aid equipment if needed in the back of the room. And of course, I want to remind everyone that although it is nice weather, we do want to watch out for those trip hazards and environmental hazards that we have both inside and outside. Those usually are a common cause of some major problems, so please be aware of those types of things. And if anybody needs anything, we have security people and members of the building itself at our disposal. So if anybody needs anything, please feel free to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. We'll do a safety briefing really quick. You walked us through the safety briefing. Excuse me. We're going to go to psychological safety. I talked about multiple perspectives on Tuesday, and that is incredibly important. We have many functions and disciplines working across the entire organization, 1,900 different people with different opinions and disciplines and training. And I think it is very important for us to encourage positive dialogue that includes those multiple perspectives. This is the only way we can become a better organization. We talked about being a learning organization, and that is truly learning and acknowledging all the different perspectives that are on the table. So that is conducive to a good psychological safety environment. Next slide, please. As Josh just mentioned, the fall weather hazards, cooler temperatures mean thawing and freezing overnight, and that is always a source of potential trips. Reduced daylight can make traversing roads and walkways more difficult. It's a time of the year when there's wildlife on rural roads. We need to be very careful as the sunlight goes down earlier. We need to be very careful with that. It's also that season for fire prevention at work and at home. October is a great month to review and practice safety at home, as all of us are starting to think about space heaters, electric blankets, lights, decorating lights, etc. It's important for us to know that we have a good mitigation system at home, like fire extinguishers, making sure that all of those are in good working order. Checking batteries on smoke detectors, etc. And then the other one is, again, what I mentioned on Tuesday, warming up to avoid sprains, tears, strain, or tear injuries. Doesn't matter whether you're working at home, you're hanging up lights, or you're raking leaves, or you're working at our power stations. Having a good ergonomic position and warming up is really, really important. And that concludes my safety briefing.
Great, thanks very much. Now let's run through our guidelines for the conduct of the meeting. This regular board meeting will follow the agenda made available to the public on OPPD.com. This meeting is being conducted in person with WebEx conferencing and is being recorded. Our board meetings have public comment periods on the agenda. Comments made by all parties during the meeting are a part of the official public record. After the introduction of action items, board members will ask clarifying questions of staff. Then I will ask for public comment. After public comment, the board will conduct its discussion of the matter and then vote. Also, before we adjourn, there will be an opportunity to comment on any other matters of district business. We'll take comments in the room first and then virtually via WebEx. For in-person attendees, if you wish to make a comment, please line up behind the microphone in the center of the room. Please state your name, address, and the name of any organization or person you represent. Each individual will be allotted 3 minutes per matter pending. To assist you, we will use the timer located here in the room. Mr. Adams will signal you when 30 seconds remain and when time is up. Next, we will review the 2 options for WebEx attendees to notify us. Option 1, which is being displayed now, involves sending the meeting technology host a message using the chat feature, simply stating that you wish to speak.
Thank you, Director Williams. For those who have joined us using a computer or WebEx mobile app, you will find a button in your WebEx interface to open the chat panel. Once opened, you may send your message to the meeting technology host. Requests to provide comments will be relayed to Director Williams for recognition during the public comments section.
And option 2, which is being displayed now, involves the hand raise feature.
WebEx allows attendees to virtually raise their hand. You may use this feature to indicate to OPPD that you wish to be recognized to provide comments. The hand raise button can be found at the lower control bar of WebEx. After you have provided your comments, please press the hand raise button again to virtually lower your hand. And for those who have joined the meeting using only a telephone, WebEx has a hand raise feature that is activated by pressing *3 to raise and lower your hand. When we see your hand raised, we will acknowledge you by referencing a portion of your phone number. If you wish to provide comments when recognized, please wait a brief moment to be unmuted and begin speaking. At this time, if you would like to try using the hand raise feature, please do so as a test.
I'll allow plenty of time at each opportunity for public comment from members of the public and to provide notification via WebEx. When I call on a member of the public to speak, our meeting technology host will unmute your microphone. Before commencing your comments, I suggest you first affirm that we can hear you. Please state your name and address and state the name of any organization or person you are representing. Organizations should choose one representative to speak on their behalf. Each individual will be allotted 3 minutes per matter pending at the discretion of the board. To assist you, we will display a timer on the WebEx screen to ensure each member of the public receives a consistent amount of time. Mr. Adams will signal you when 30 seconds remain, as well as when time is up. For all attendees, please direct your comments to me. I will either respond to you directly or defer response to another board member or officer of the district. The board values and welcomes civil, respectful, clear, and concise communication from the public. During public comments, speakers should refrain from repetitious, profane, or irrelevant comments. Speakers shall refrain from polling the board as such vote is not on the agenda and is prohibited by law. If you have written materials, please email them to corporatesecretary@oppd.com. Please note that is a different email than we have used in the past. That's corporatesecretary@oppd.com, and they will be received on our behalf. For those at the Omaha Douglas Civic Center, please hand your materials to Mr. Adams seated at the front of the room. In summary, we will take room comments first, then WebEx comments, then have a last call. Mr. Adams, will you please take the roll call?
Bogner is absent. Moody,
Here.
Kavanaugh,
Here.
Spurgeon,
Here.
Howard,
Here.
Williams,
Here.
Molhoff,
Here.
Yoder.
Here.
Announcement regarding public notice of meeting. Notice of the time and place of this meeting was publicized by notifying the area news media, by publicizing the same in the Omaha World Herald, OPPD Outlets newsletter, oppd.com, and social media, by displaying such notice on the arcade level of Energy Plaza, and by emailing such notice to each of the district's directors on October 14th, 2022. A copy of the proposed agenda for this meeting has been maintained on a current basis and is readily available for public inspection in the office of the district's corporate secretary. Additionally, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available for inspection on oppd.com and in this meeting room. Board consent action items. The consent agenda items are as follows. 6, approval of the August 2022 Comprehensive Financial and Operating Report, September 2022 meeting minutes, and the October 2022 agenda. SD 12, Information Management and Security Monitoring Report, Resolution Number 6526. The 2022 Excess Expenditure Approval, Resolution Number 6527. Grading, drainage, entry roads, and miscellaneous work for Greenfield Substation Site, Resolution Number 6528. Nebraska City Station Unit 2 Economizer Upper Bank Tubing Replacement, Labor Contract Award, Resolution Number 6529. Nebraska City Station Unit 1 Turbine Intercept Valve Bonnet Replacement, Engineer Certificate, Resolution Number 6530. Sarpy County Unit 4A Power Turbine Repairs, Engineer Certificate, Resolution Number 6531. SD 13 Stakeholder Outreach and Engagement Monitoring Report, Resolution Number 6532. If there are no corrections, changes, or additions to the consent agenda items, I need a motion and a second to approve the items.
So moved.
Second.
We discussed these action items at the all-committee meeting on Tuesday, October 18th. On the way in, I was discussing with another director, and although there is limited discussion of these items during the board meeting on Thursday, there is an extremely significant amount of work put in by staff, and board members expressed appreciation for all of the ongoing operational work. So although this is only a very tiny portion of our agenda on Thursdays, please accept the appreciation for all of the work that is represented by all of the items that we're going to vote on here today. Do any members of the public in the room have comments on the consent agenda items? If you'd like to make a comment, please come to the podium. I do not see anyone who has a comment on the consent agenda. Do any members of the public on WebEx have a comment? Please send a chat to the meeting host or use the hand raise feature in WebEx. Telephone users can press *3 to raise their hand.
No raised hands or chats.
Great, thanks very much. Mr. Adams, will you please call the roll?
Bogner is absent. Moody,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Spurgeon,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Mulhoff,
Yes.
Yoder.
Yes.
Consent agenda approved. Board discussion action items. SD 7 Environmental Stewardship Monitoring Report, Resolution Number 6533. The word is on the screen, and it ends, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Directors of Omaha Public Power District accepts the SD7 Environmental Stewardship Monitoring Report in the form as set forth on Exhibit A attached hereto and made a part hereof, and finds OPPD to be sufficiently in compliance with the policy as stated.
And I move for adoption of the resolution.
Second.
At this time, are there any clarifying questions from directors for any of the information that was presented as part of this report? Great, I do not see any requests for clarification. Do any members of the public in the room have a comment on this action item? If you would like to make a comment, please come to the podium. Good afternoon.
John Pollock, 1412 North 35th Street, Omaha. Basically, I'm in favor of this. I looked at the materials and the way you have it laid out, and I appreciate putting together a lot of metrics on the compliance issues. I realize that going forward, we've got a fairly uncertain environment as far as speed with which we can implement these things based on technology and competing interests of other utilities versus availability of new technology. However, I'm encouraged with the direction that that this goes, and I appreciate the effort that everybody is putting into this. The speedier we can accomplish this within the other guidelines of the utility, the happier I am about it. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. I do not see anyone else in the room with a comment. Do any members of the public on WebEx have a comment? Please send a chat to the meeting host or use the hand raise feature in WebEx. Telephone users can press *3 to raise their hand.
There are no comments or raised hands online.
Great. With that, I would like to ask for any comment or discussion from board members before we consider approval of the SD7 monitoring report.
I have a comment.
Director Yoder.
Thank you. So I will be voting no on this, and I don't expect anybody to join me on that. It's just this is where I am, and I thought I'd share my thinking on this. I've been through, this is my 6th one, right? So it's the last one I've got. And I think there are some issues that I've raised before that I want to continue to raise. And then there are some newer ones as well. The language in the report, gotta be careful how I say this. It implies, and I don't mean that in a mean way, but that having 0 regulatory infractions is the same as having 0 environmental impact. And for me, my lens, and I understand everybody has a different lens, right? So my lens goes way back to 1975 when I was a smoker, right? I was a smoker, and I was first introduced up in Minnesota to smoking and non-smoking sections of restaurants. I was shocked. I was amazed. How could that be? But it was a few years later in a graduate mechanical engineering class that faculty had us work on U.S. Senator Inouye's request to find out how many cigarettes could safely be smoked in a commercial airline, any of them that were flying in the United States at the time. That was back when 1/3 of the cabin was, the back third was routinely the smoking section, and everything else was a non-smoking section. And non-smokers were supposed to accept that there was no impact on them from the smokers. For me, laws always lag science. And merely stating that 0 regulatory infractions can be extended to say 0 environmental impact is something I can't live with. And so that's a problem I have with this. A second element is I can't always understand connections between OPPD's environmental impacts and the activities we choose to report. It's hard for me to make the connection between the significant OPPD environmental impact and items in the report about plants and birds. While I agree that our customers like that, I agree that I like that, it's not offsetting, right? And for me, OPPD has such a huge tonnage of emissions. I struggle with the relationship between the two. A third element that has me a little discontented is the notion that the board approved in resolution number 6006, I believe, in 2014, a demand side management quantity. And in this report, we didn't recognize that. We don't recognize, but what was said on Tuesday is that there have been subsequent studies, but again, those studies were the explanation of the difference of those studies were not presented to the board. And I just struggle with the board approving an amount based on a study, and then a subsequent board would be asked to ignore that. And then the last element for me is measurement. It's not the least, but it's the last. I think the board should really work hard to make data-driven decisions. And in this report, we had several activity measures, and activity measures are not outcome measures. This is something I've said often. I would have hoped we'd be beyond that by now. The number of cars, for example, that OPPD buys doesn't indicate whether the emissions from them, which is the actual cause of environmental impact, have gone down, have gone up, or have stayed the same. I think it's confusing for the members of the public when we report on activities when what we're really trying to do is reflect what the environmental performance is. And transportation is important, right? Nationally, transportation has an almost equivalent environmental impact as emission from power plants. So I am happy for the work that's happening there. I just look for better reporting. And good measurement for me is like good driving. It requires that not just looking in the rearview mirror to see where we've been, but looking side to side at our peers and looking forward at the road ahead. The environmental impacts described in SD7 can be evaluated in all three ways, and I'm happy to continue the discussion on how I think that can happen at any future point. So with that, those are my reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Other directors? Director Moody.
Thank you for the reasons, Director Yoder. Let me address them if I could. I don't think anybody's suggesting that there's no impact. So while I'm connecting the report to the strategic directive, and the report is a reflection of the extent to which we're achieving the strategic directive. So that's not a concern for me. I understand where you are with respect to the birds and plants versus environmental impact. Okay, I don't think that that's reason enough to say no to the monitoring report. The DSM issue, appreciate you bringing it up, but it's not contemplated in the strategic directive. And I know you well enough to know you have a great desire for metrics, and that I appreciate, and I've learned a lot from you in that space. I would point out that we do have our first comprehensive greenhouse gas inventory done for 2021, which includes a baseline for mobile combustion. So while the number of electric vehicles in and of itself is an activity, agree, we've got a baseline now that we're going to measure over time, which I'm excited about. So I didn't want those to go unresponded to, because I think my reflection on this report is, and my lens is one that's focused on what is the strategic directive calling the organization to do, and to what extent is the organization demonstrating that we're compliant with it? And when I look at this report, and as we know, we've got access to all sorts of data and information with respect to what our emissions are and other environmental impacts, it's pretty clear that we've made some pretty exceptional progress. Always room to grow in this space, no doubt about it. That's the case for all of our strategic directives as far as I'm concerned. So I'm pleased with the report. I think y'all have done a wonderful job pulling it together. I think we've made some great strides in this space, and I think nobody would argue with the fact that we've got more work to do as well. Thank you.
Great. I would like to highlight that we have discussed multiple times over recent years the overlap and separation between the review of compliance with an existing policy and the potential areas for future policy updates. With SD7, I think this is particularly clear, especially because we just made a policy update last month related to the pending future emission reductions from the refueling and partial decommissioning at North Omaha Station. So this is an area where the governance committee and the board as a whole has worked significantly to identify the review process for the current language and the compliance resolution and the potential future work. We are planning a board governance workshop for the beginning of 2023, when I expect there will be additional discussion about potential updates both to SD7, which have been discussed here, and other strategic directives that we've discussed at the time of the monitoring reports over the last several months or since our last board governance workshop. As I mentioned on Tuesday, the data presented both documents the progress that we have made with regards to Strategic Directive 7, and it helps to identify key areas where we should focus our future policy work. There are three areas that are particularly important to me as I feel they have significant influence over the overall direction of the future of our utility. And that would be in the customer-owned generation, electric vehicles, and carbon dioxide interim metrics for future emissions. Firstly, I discussed on Tuesday that the customer-owned generation graphic, which was presented in SD7, is a significant accomplishment. There has been a vast increase in the pace of deployment, and past policy updates have helped to facilitate that and bring value to our customers and to the utility from distributed energy resources located at homes and businesses. And I know that staff is continuing to expand their response to help keep down the time necessary to get those projects completed, and significant appreciation to the entire team who is working on that because, again, as demonstrated, we are on a exponential or faster than exponential growth of customer-owned generation right now. So looking forward, what are we going to do to help facilitate successful deployment and to help guide the market in line with our economic development objectives as the customer-owned generation demand accelerates in the future? The Inflation Reduction Act re-increases the tax incentive. I think we can expect 2023 to see a similar increase relative to the 2022 report. And I hope that we look to policy that both provides economic incentives for customer-owned generation, provides reasons for contractors to work with OPPD to deliver high-quality service for our customer owners, and helps guide where we are headed in the future. Specifically, customer-owned generation coupled with distributed energy storage is more valuable than either asset on its own, and I hope that we look to specifically develop policy that will help guide solar and storage at homes and businesses as a benefit to our customer owners and to the utility more broadly. I mentioned electric vehicles. I appreciate the documentation that we've done on the fleet conversion that has been happening within OPPD. That is very impressive. I do agree with Director Yoder that measuring the fleet is a good step. I would also be interested to see additional updates about the outcomes that come from the conversion of our fleet. And I know that's part of our Scope 2 and Scope 3 emissions inventory that is being developed. So I expect that we will see more data on that in the future, and I appreciate that, that view forward. I would also be interested, as I mentioned on Tuesday, to see more documentation of the comprehensive view of electrified transportation, both individual and fleet level, in OPPD's service territory. And I mention this because our own decarbonization study and other projections from Bloomberg to every other modeling agency you could ask says that electrified transportation will show an extremely significant increase in the overall electric consumption as we look forward. Unlike probably anything we've seen before, something like 50% increase or even a doubling of total electric consumption for transportation. That is the type of influence that it is best to understand proactively so that we can write policy to help with electric vehicle charge shifting, which I know we have a pilot project going on right now. That wasn't specifically discussed on Tuesday, but we have talked about it in the past. And so I hope that we can get a more comprehensive view of electrified transportation on an SD7 monitoring report in the future, because it will have such an important impact as to where we're going. Again, electrified transportation is a significant benefit to our customer owners and can be to the utility, as it represents a huge growth in consumption, a variable demand consumption on our grid. Lastly, we made an update for interim metrics associated with North Omaha Station. The Systems Committee has talked about interim metrics for carbon emission reductions following the decarbonization study for most of the last year. And we did come to a resolution related to the anticipated emissions reductions from North Omaha Station that has been adopted. That is in the future. So in looking at the emissions reductions that were documented in the report this week, I hope that we can also look forward and project potential other interim metrics for future emission reductions farther out into the future. And I hope that this will help guide our resource planning so that we have a good idea of how our other work within the organization will be aligned with the environmental sustainability objective of our mission. I know that we are a few years from the first interim metric. We talked about the advanced feasibility studies, and I've mentioned this a couple times recently. I've been talking with staff through the Systems Committee about this at great length. So I hope that when we conclude the advanced feasibility studies, we can look at a policy update that will have additional interim metrics for carbon emission reductions that are associated with other emissions reductions as well. That's probably not in 2023, but I think it's something that we should discuss at the board policy workshop. And I hope that it will help us to look forward to other SD7 updates that would be necessary in the future. All of that is a discussion of potential future updates and is not directly relevant to the current approval now. But it does reflect that we have made significant improvements, particularly over the last few years, in the way we've reported, the way we've updated our policy, and the general direction that we are headed with SD7 and with the overall mission of the utility. So I agree that we are in compliance. I think that we have made significant steps forward, and I look forward to additional steps forward as we continue to update the policy and continue to deliver the best possible results for our customer owners. Yes, CEO Fernandez.
If I may, thank you, Director Williams and Director Yoder and Director Moody. I would like just to address quickly on your comments, Director Williams, on customer and generation electric vehicles and such. I appreciate the sentiment and the desire for metrics. I would like also to remind the public and members of the board, we have a fantastic product development and marketing team of professionals who do nothing other than develop, design products and do marketing and understand customer adoption with proven marketing techniques to figure out, okay, what is it that we need to deploy more customer generation, to deploy more electric vehicles and to facilitate that. So great points there. I just want to call that out that what you will continue to see in the future is really based out of the research that our professional team that has expanded significantly. I can tell you in the last 4 years, we've added a significant number of full-time employees whose job exclusively is to develop products and market products and figure out how do we best deploy the resources we have to accomplish that. So some of the recommendations may or may not align with what you said today, and we will have opportunities to debate and discuss that in the future. But I wanted to call that out that, the public's resources have been used significantly into expanding and strengthening that area of the district.
Appreciate the elaboration there. And if I did not show significant enough appreciation for staff's work, I know that we had a pilot project for customer owned generation this year. We had a pilot project for EV charging. So again, I apologize if my comments sounded too much like additional work and not enough like appreciation for the work that has been accomplished, because we have been doing really, really great things. Again, which is why I think that SD7 documents the work that has been accomplished, and I am supportive of approval of the resolution today. So with no further discussion, Mr. Adams, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Bogner is absent. Moody,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Spurgeon,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Mulhaupt,
Yes.
Yoder.
No.
Motion approved.
Great. Next on the agenda is the President's report. CEO Fernandez.
I'm going to use my readers. I'm getting to that age. Inevitable. Thank you. So Nebraska City Unit and 1 and 2 capacity factors were 41.8 and 12.9%. These were not planned outages. We would have expected the September baseload generation in Nebraska City to be higher. We had 2 completely independent, non-related, unplanned outages. Nebraska City 1 came offline on September 3rd. After 125 days of continuous operations, there was a boiler 2 failure that caused the unit to be offline for 11 days. We brought that unit back to on service on September 14th. That's why you see that lower than usual capacity factor. Nebraska City 2 had a larger, more serious issue involving machining repairs to the exciter collector rings. It took a little longer to bring it back online. It is back online, but that's why you see that capacity factor of 12.9. It was not planned. It's unplanned outages. On the bright side, having those 2 outages in the month of September allowed us to recover and gain a little bit more strength on our coal pile, which had been lowered. It had been coming down during the summer. We had some issues with coal deliveries. So having these 2 units down, the silver lining is that it helped us gain approximately 125,000 tons of coal inventory, bringing the coal pile back about 7 days of full load burn. Still not where we wanted to be, but that helped a lot. North Omaha Unit 4 had experienced a tube leak. That also explains that lower than normal capacity factor. North Omaha Unit 5 operated the whole month as expected. Next slide, please. Our balancing generation, it's at BC time of the month, time of the year. Cass County operated 8.4% of the time. North Omaha Unit 3, you can see that very significant capacity factor in the month of September partially was responding to the lack of generation we had on the other units that I just described. Sarpy County operated as well, and we are getting into that part of the year in October where there are quite a few planned outages, so I will be reporting on that next month. It is also that part of the year when we expect wind generation to pick up and help with that with the outage season that we have in the fall. Next slide, please. September renewables. Renewable energy contributed 31.6% of OPPD's retail energy sales, wind capacity factor of 40%. These will change. We're getting into those months, these windy months where it is, I expect these numbers to increase in the next few months. Capacity factor for our community solar remained at 26.5%, similar to what we've seen in the previous months. Next slide, please. Customer-owned generation. As Director Williams pointed out, earlier this month, we held 2 workshops to hear directly from both our residential and business customers on what they are seeking in terms of a product or service regarding a variety of behind-the-meter solar options. Both workshops were at full capacity, and the conversation was fluid with rich insights and feedback from our customers. Again, the product development and marketing team will continue their market research, including customer conversations, as they look to build a suite of solutions around solar in the near future. Before we move on to the next slide, I want to talk quickly. There was a request to talk about Greener Together, and I'll report a few statistics. The Greener Together program was launched in May of 2022. So just a few months ago. Since inception, we have approximately 5,100 customers enrolled. Our 2022 target is 6,000. So well on our way to meet the target for customers enrolled in the Greener Together program. Funds raised from those customers to date is approximately $126,000 total. Still have to net administrative fees, but it's a significant amount of money there for projects. We have completed 1 project to date, and we have applications for 4 additional projects. More information can be found on the community page that is listed on, you can get there from our website. Now we can go to the next slide, please. Honoring our community, Habitat for Humanity, we held a Rock the Block event. We partnered with Habitat of Humanity in Omaha to enhance neighborhoods and assist homeowners with exterior repairs, landscaping, and other home improvements. On Saturday, September 24th, OPPD worked alongside volunteers from UNO, Creighton, Prep, and Bellevue Christian Center in the Old Town Bellevue. In addition, the forestry team coordinated Wright's Tree Service, so shout out to that company, to take care of low-hanging limbs and tree trimming near power lines at several of the homes in the same community. As you can see here, many members of the OPPD team and 1 member of our board is pictured in there. If you zoom in, you probably can see Director Spurgeon participating. It was a great event, and I think the team was blessed with great weather too, so that's always a plus. The next slide, please. Connecting the dots. So OPPD works closely with the UNL Extension Office and area business to host this 1-day event it's an interactive career exploration simulation program to help 9th and 10th grade students learn about careers of interest. So we held this event at Cass County Fairgrounds with 130 students from Louisville High School, Conestoga Junior Senior High School, and Weeping Water High School. So also, again, we're rotating these, and this time it was down in the southern part of our territory. Next slide, please. Again, on the same topic of honoring our community, we held the 34th annual Swigert Invitational Tournament, and this is a great event where OPPD employees and friends of OPPD, we get together. We again were blessed with a great weather. There was a golf tournament where all of the proceeds go into the energy assistance program. We raised $54,000. It's the highest amount donated to date. Fantastic, and again, this helps with energy assistance program, and also some proceeds from the event funds scholarships to UNO, Creighton, and Bellevue University. So great event and a great way to say hi to a lot of employees who we haven't seen in a while because of COVID. Last but certainly not least, this is a good opportunity for us to remember those who we lost and remember how important safety is on everything we do. This case is Michael W. Johnson, who's a lineman who died on December 10 of 2002. He died from injuries sustained when he fell from the pole on which he was working. Michael was 37 years old and had been with the district for just 1 year. He was a 20-year member of the Ashland Fire Department and had been recently elected assistant chief. According to the fire chief, he was the kind of person that people like to follow. He did it in a way just by setting a good example. Michael was survived by his wife, Janine, his son, Paul, his daughter, Taylor, and his mom, brother, and sister. And with that, Vice Chair Williams, that concludes my President's report.
Thanks very much. Now we'll have an opportunity for comments on other items of district business. Do any members of the public in the room have a comment on other items? If you would like to make a comment, please come to the podium.
John Pollock, 1412 North 35th Street, Omaha. This one's weather. Next few days are going to be nice through the weekend. Enjoy it. One of the hazards that was mentioned earlier was slipping. By Sunday night, we're going to have a wet leaf hazard possibility because we may get a rain, thunderstorms even. Unfortunately, it looks like the bulk of the precipitation will be to our east, so it's probably not going to help out our drought much at all. In fact, after that, the outlook is for probably drier weather again, cooler temperatures. The pattern kind of flattens out for about a week and probably just sort of cool late October temperatures without a lot of extremes. After that, we are definitely in a La Nina weather pattern, which will be affecting our weather through the winter. This will be the third winter in a row where we've had that. The standard outlook for our area with La Nina is on the average, near normal temperatures, near to below normal precipitation. However, that's the average. What actually happens in an La Nina year typically, and what has happened the last 2 years, is that we have an intensified circulation over eastern Canada, sometimes referred to loosely as the polar vortex. That is more liable to come down into our area, so we're more susceptible to cold spells when that happens. On the other hand, the subtropical jet can also become active. It tends to give warmer weather and wetter to the southern plains and Gulf Coast. So as we saw last December, that can bring moisture up into our area too. So just because the average is near normal, unfortunately doesn't mean that our weather is going to be normal or placid. We will have to be on the lookout for strong changes, as we've already seen this month. The contrast between the colder air coming down, and that was an early development of the Hudson Bay low, contrasted with the warm blocking conditions we have over eastern, or rather western U.S., extending sometimes up into southern Canada. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I do not see any other public comments in the room. Do we have any members of the public who have comments via WebEx? You can either raise your hand or send a chat to notify the host.
We have no chats and no hand raises.
Great. Maybe wait just a second to make sure. We usually have some, but we don't see anybody. Sounds good. I guess everybody's happy with what we're doing.
That's right.
Thank you for your comments. With that, we will adjourn the meeting at 5:44 p.m. Thanks very much. Have a good evening.